Hello there, Calling Up Community. I'm Claudia Alec, and today we will be reflecting on something that we've been calling the exonerative case. White supremacy culture is hurtful and harmful to just about everybody who's inside of it. So it has to be maintained by a set of fictions. You have to create a fictive reality, an alternate state of reality in order to justify what is taking place and create a narrative that makes sense. This is how people decide not to revolt or rebel or break down or shut down white supremacy culture through these series of performances that make these hurtful, harmful aspects of white supremacy culture become decoupled from what creates them. So as a society, individuals are confused and don't really understand why bad things are happening. Now, oftentimes the bad thing that happens is so obvious it has to be news. It's news, we all need to talk about it. And that's when this happens. Let me share my screen. So this was posted by Julian Castro. This is regarding the Kenosha shooting. And this is just a short clip. This is not the full clip of his statement. But let's listen to.
Persons were shot. Everybody involved was out after the curfew. I'm not going to make a great deal of that, but the point is the curfew's in place to protect. Have persons not been out involved in.
So I'm just going to pause right here. So this isn't actually the exonerative case, but it's still doing the same labor of, in this statement, they have to acknowledge what happened, but they have to give everyone the impression that the victims are to blame, white people are fully innocent and non-culpable completely, and white supremacy culture does not need to be interrogated or interrupted. And for clarity, Black Lives Matter protesters shot on the streets by a 17-year-old person who decided that they needed to, I guess, support white nationalism and white supremacy culture. I can only say allegedly. I don't know all of the facts.
Violation of that, perhaps the situation that unfolded would not have happened.
That said, though, I think it's real interesting that this chief of police needs to tell everybody that, well, first of all, if the protesters hadn't been out after curfew, a random thing that we made up, then they would not have been harmed by white supremacy culture. They should have just behaved differently. Hey, people, guess what? If you just change your individual private behavior, white supremacy culture will stop murdering you. That's not how it works. But please continue. Please continue to make a point. So you don't want to make a big deal out of a gigantic problem and then just move on. But let's just maintain that he has just set the frame of he doesn't want us to interrogate or have a conversation and make a big deal out of this. Just know it was after curfew, and the people who got shot, those Black Lives Matter protesters, they were breaking the law too. They were out after curfew. But what else does he have to say to us to help us understand this horrifying tragedy?
So the last night, a 17-year-old individual from Antioch, Illinois.
Let's listen to that. A 17-year-old individual. We don't want to reference their gender, and we don't want to reference their race. This isn't about white men being violent. This is not about that. And we do not want to do any public communications that might indicate that we are giving any responsibility to white men in this situation. It's just a 17-year-old individual. Fascinating. I've listened to a lot of news conferences, and generally, if it's a Black person or an Arabic person, they don't say their age and that they were an individual and leave it at that. These are choices. These are choices because this person's telling a story. And the story that they're telling is this person was not, the story that the police are telling are, this individual was not with us. This individual doesn't represent what the police want. Like, yeah, lots of folks are going to label the horrifying violence that this person did as maintaining peace and order and law and order, but that's not what, that we didn't want them to, that they're an individual. They're not part of what we're doing. We're not the same. That's what they're saying in that moment. That was an individual who's not part of the same exercise that they are doing. Different. Also, this is an individual, like not even part of a movement. And it's an individual. Like, we're not going to label this person as a terrorist or belonging to any kind of larger group of human beings that might need to be held accountable or be part of the conversation. Just an individual.
Was involved in the use of firearms to resolve whatever conflict was in place.
Okay, that's interesting too. So this is Claudia Alec about to take a big old guess. I'm guessing, right? But linguistically, a Freudian slip has just taken place. So what this person's trying to do is linguistically complicated. They are attempting to tell the story of a white man killing and murdering two people on the street. But they don't want to say this white man shot people. So they're just going to say a firearm was involved. Firearm was involved. And an individual was involved in the use of a firearm to resolve a conflict. But he didn't say resolve. He started to say preserve. Preserve what? Preserve the peace? Oh, I thought that was your job. What was he preserving or reserving? I don't know. I don't know. What was he resolving? Actually, what was he resolving? What conflict was the young white man who came to the Black Lives Matter protest there to resolve? What conflict was he resolving by murdering Americans who were working to help save other American lives? This is the exonerative case. An individual was involved. They were just involved. They didn't do anything. They didn't start anything. They didn't make anything happen. They were involved in the use of firearms. They were around them. Firearms were nearby. You can't blame firearms. You can't blame the white man. And you can't name what actually happened. You're just going to name that, well, there was a vague and undefined conflict going on.
The result of it was two people are dead. Persons were shot.
Okay, so I share this with you because I would like you to start keeping an eye out and an ear out for when you're reading a newspaper article or hearing a story framed in a specific way, to keep an ear out for that particular way of framing that preemptively exonerates the person. It's creating the conditions of justifying a lack of accountability in action. And it's something that white supremacy culture does all the time. It's linguistic, it's tricksy, and it's just words. So it's something that we can actually interrogate and think more about. All right, calling of community, thank you for your time. Black Lives Matter, stay strong. Thank you so much for continuing to work for a better place for us all to live and to dismantle racism. Oh, I should just go back to, I'm gonna go back to emulating one of my favorite heroes.